In the ancient history of India, there existed a great man with extraordinary qualities, Bodhidharma. He is great at medicine as well as martial arts. He goes to China to help them combat a virus, and several years later, China decides to repay India by exposing this virus in India. Will India find an antidote? The story of Bodhidharma started about 1,600 years ago in the Kanchipuram Pallava dynasty in India. While other countries specialize in killing human and hunting, this dynasty is specialized in medicine. They learn excellent medicine skills called the Sarahasamruthi, and their master is Bodhidharma. He is not only are the best at medicine and kung fu, but he also excels in a defense skills called mesmerism. Needless to say that Bodhidharma is one in a million. However, he gets an order from his mother to travel to China. As a result, Bodhidharma leaves his family and travels 3 years into the forest until he gets to Nanyang, China. At Nanyang, divination comes out from the priest that day that a terrible evil will visit their village and kill most of them. So as they see Bodhidharma, they assume the prophecy is talking about him. They boo him out of the village while screaming at him, and he leaves their village and goes to stay in the forest. The people of Nanyang assume the evil has gone. However, they do not know that evil is just coming. About a few days later, a pandemic spread around the city. It starts with a young girl. She emits pores around her face, and since the doctor has no solution, they bind her and take her to the forest. Bodhidharma sees the helpless young girl there and helps her. He grounds some leaves and uses this as medicine. After the girl's issue, several other villagers get infected by this pandemic. While the people are in pain, the young girl's mother sees her daughter with Bodhidharma. She runs to her and thanks him. The villagers bow to him, and they ask him to help them heal the other sick ones. As time goes on, Bodhidharma teaches several Chinese men how to create several medicines. One day, the village is attacked by invaders, and they attacks the people and kill some of them. That's when they see Bodhidharma standing there. At that point, the people do not know of his great fighting skills with the use of hypnotism, which can make him win battles by just looking at his enemy's eyes. The invaders attempt to use bows on him, but he swings the arrows with his stick and hypnotizes them to kill each other. The villagers thanks him again and ask him to teach them how to fight and defend themselves. He teaches them, which leads to the creation of his martial arts school there. After spending several years in China, Bodhidharma expresses his intention to return to India. The villagers again consult the priest and again misunderstand the prophecy and give Bodhidharma poison food. Before he eats, he notices it's poison. He asks them, and they tell him their gods say if he dies and he is buried in their country, their village will be free of all sicknesses. He accepts to die for them, and he eats the poison. He dies and is buried in the city. After several years his school still remains in China's Shaolin Temple, and it has grown tremendously. Currently, the government of China calls one of the students of the Shaolin Temple, Dong Li. They give him the responsibility of ensuring the success of Operation Red in India, a project that will make the head of India in about 3 years. However, the operation is on the verge of getting spoilt by a young girl, and he is given the responsibility of going to India and killing her. About 3 months ago in Chennai, some genetic engineering students headed by Shubha visit a circus to rent a monkey for their research. They ask the circus owner to rent the monkey for 1,000 rupees, and when the owner refuses, one of his assistants, Aravind, interferes. He likes Shubha when he say her, and he asks her to tell him what she wants. After that he tries to convince his boss to rent them the monkey, but he doesn't agree, so the girls leave. He sees them the next day in an amusement park and keeps looking at them. She notices he appears in all of her pictures, so they scare him away, but he had already stole her phone and tells to his friend that she will call him when she notices her phone is missing. She calls later in the evening to ask the person with her phone to please return it. She asks him to meet her by 10 a.m. the next day in the mall so she can take back her phone. Unfortunately, his friend drops the phone in excitement and it gets scattered. The next day he distributes the parts of the phone in different places, and makes her pick them up. They meet each other, and as time goes on they become good friends. He is in love with her, but she leads him on. One day as they meet around his circus park, she sees his family members, and she tries to run away but they drag her back. They tell her they know her and she has once visited their village to ask about their ancestor Bodhidharma, and she even tested them and took their blood. She insists she isn't the one. They remind her she came to look for Aravind thinking that Aravind must be the direct ancestor, but she denies everything and leaves. The next day, Aravind makes her gift, and he tells her he loves her in the gift. She collects the gift without much emotions. After that she nervously enters the bank to call her friend. She is getting scared that he might find her out. Her friend tells her to remain calm and tell him the truth. They spend the day together, and as she drops him at home at night and leaves, his uncle, who now remembers her, tells Aravind that she has been looking for him since 2 years ago, and has collected some hair samples of him from his home long back. He gets angry and goes to confront her in her house, which was actually a laboratory. As she attempts to explain, He enters and sees that all they have done together is all planned. He gets angry. She apologizes and says she wants to tell him the next day, but couldn't do it when he proposed her through that gift. She isn't interested in his love, and neither did she tell him she loved him. He was the one who misinterpreted every gesture of love. She says that it is his fault that he doesn't know how to deal with girls because he lived with animals in the circus most of his life. He walks away angrily, and he spends his night miserably. The following day, she comes to meet him, and she begs him to please come with her to a place, and if he thinks he deserves to be still angry after that, then it's fine. She takes him to a museum where he sees the legendary book Bodhidharma left at home. Before leaving, she tells him everything in the museum isn't just history. Later, she takes him to a hospital. She shows him little kids who have been infected with hereditary diseases before showing him her research on her laptop. She tells him how the children could inherit the illness through their DNA, and a lot more about genetic traits. Shubha also says that about 3 years ago, the remains of Bodhidharma were found and they saw the DNA, and she is determined that she could bring back Bodhidharma back with his relatives that have his DNA. She came to know that Bodhidharma's descendants are living in Aravin's village. As a result, she goes to his village, and was surprised by how close Aravin looks like Bodhidharma. So she finds his comb with his hair on it and did her research. She found out his DNA matches over 80% with Bodhidharma's DNA. Since then, she has been tailing him. When he got injured in circus, she used the doctors to do more experiments on him. She has reached her conclusion that he is almost like Bodhidharma, and all she needs to do now is to do some genetic engineering procedures to get his DNA to a 100% match with his ancestor. If they did that, that could do good to their country and the whole world. He is now convinced that Shubha did the right thing and offers her his support. But, Dong Li has arrived in India. He injects Operation Red virus on a dog, and when the police find him, he used his hypnotic skills to control their mind and escaped from there. The next day, Shubha goes to meet the medical board for permission to use her research on humans, but her request is denied. While she walks away angrily, the police arrive and invite her to their station. Her neighbor boy is arrested in the station for killing his father. But he says that he didn't do it, but a Chinese man killed his father when he came there looking for Shubha's house. He also warns her about him as he will come to kill her again. Just about the same time, Dong Li enters the police station. He hypnotizes the officers to kill each other for him, and he approaches the room Shubha is in with Aravind. Before Dong Li gets there, Shubha and Aravind escape. However, Aravind feels they should know why Dong Li is chasing them. So they tail Dong Li and see him leaving with Shubha's professors from his house. As the professor leaves, they enter his house and searches his computer and finds a 300 crore transaction to his account from China. Shubha calls the professor and proposes a meeting with him the following day. The next day, he calls and Aravind accuses him of the money in Operation Red and threatens to report him to the government. Under Dong Li's nose, Aravind makes the professor meet him at a place. Dong Li loses track of the professor on the busy road. They torture the professor, who tells them Operation Red is a bio-war where the Chinese government is releasing the same virus that attacked China during Bodhidharma's era. Dong Li has injected it in a dog. In a few days, the virus will kill millions of people, after which China will offer to give Indians the solution to it, the same solution Bodhidharma used. That way, India will be under China's mercy. However, the professor sent a document of Shubha's experiments to China. When the Chinese government sees it, they figure that if another Bodhidharma is created, he may find a cure for the disease. So they send Dong Li to kill Shubha and Aravind. Shubha makes one of her colleagues, Ashwin, call to know if some infected dogs exist. They find out that the veterinary hospital have reported this disease in many dogs. They also find out some hospitals have reported similar cases, and they try to convince the doctors to isolate the patients, but the doctors believe it's monkeypox and not some disease from 1600 years ago. Dong Li finds them at one of the hospitals and confronts Aravind. He tries to manipulate his mind, but he can't. They engage in physical combat, and Aravind luckily escapes. Dong Li calls the Shaolin Temple to know why he can't control Aravind, and they tell him Aravind is Bodhidharma's blood. He determines that if they can kill Bodhidharma, he can kill Aravind too. As Shubha and Aravind try to escape, Dong Li controls the mind of all the drivers to attack them. After a battle with many people hypnotized by Dong Li, the duo escapes to a cemetery where they meet their friends. One of their friends, Malati, tells them the only one who can cure the virus is Bodhidharma, and they should do the genetic engineering procedure which will match Arvind's genes with Bodhidharma and bring the hero back. Ashwin helps them with a private laboratory, and they dispose of their SIM cards. They decide not to tell Malati of the location so Dong Li won't manipulate her. They start the process of transforming Arvind's DNA, but unfortunately, Dong Li searches their former house and manipulates the bank officials to find out all of Malati's withdrawal. The professor helps him with information on Malati, and he kills the professor afterward. He finds Malati, who says he can't get information from her because she doesn't know where they are. He kills her and finds a message on her phone that directs him to Imran, who gets them the drugs. He manipulates Imran into getting the location of their lab, and Imran calls Shuba afterward. Shuba now knows that Dong Li is coming, and unfortunately, Arvin's experiments haven't finished. They try to relocate, but they are found by Dong Li, who hits the girls and starts hitting Aravind. In the middle of the fight, Aravind recovers all of Bodhidharma's genetics. He uses his newfound kung fu skills to attack Dong Li and he kills him in heroic style. With the power and knowledge of Bodhidharma, he finds the cure for the virus and saves Indians from it. At the movie's end, on the national television, he discusses the importance of history and how Indians shouldn't forget their heroes and traditions. If you love the video, here is another video that you should watch.